I had no money. My marriage had ended. I had no record deal. And that was in October of the 2006. And I sat there and I thought, all these years, for everything that I've worked for, why have I nearly lost everything?
I feel like when we talk about Black British entertainers with a legacy, Alesha Dixon's name needs to come up in that conversation, because your journey has been incredible. It spanned 2 decades. Let's go back to the beginning when we all met Mis-Teeq back in 2001?
2001, January the 8th was when the single was released.
You remember the date?
I remember the date the single was released, yeah. It was the biggest day of my life.
So what was that like? Take me back to that time. What was it like for a Black British female group in the UK as well? Because we'd imported Destiny's Child.
Yes.
But the UK was very Westlife and S Club 7.
Yes.
So what was your experience of that time?
Everybody told us don't do it. Everybody thought the odds were against us. Even close family and friends, they thought we were crazy. They didn't think Black people would sell records in the UK. And they thought we should have a sensible job. And we all said, nah, we got this. It's all good. And I think in a weird way, that arrogance that came with being 21 and fearless is what helped us. Because in a way, we were like, we need to be different. We need to prove that we can sell records. We need to prove that 3 Black girls don't need to necessarily have a white girl in the group in order to sell records. So it meant a lot. It was a big deal. We were still, when I think back to that time and I think about some of the other pop acts that were around at the time, we were the ones signed to the smallest label. Everybody else had major record labels, big marketing budgets, and we didn't have any of that. And the only reason Mis-Teeq is successful is because of the pirate radio stations and all the DJs that supported us and played our jam when no one knew who we were, what we looked like. We'd go out to a rave and Y would come on and we'd know it was our jam that was coming on because it was a turquoise green vinyl, and you'd see the DJ bring it out. We'd be there dancing to our own jam in a club. No one recognised us. There was no video at the time. And it was all authentic. All the major radio stations turned us down. I mean, most of them, apart from Dream Team at Radio 1, who were the only ones that supported Y on mainstream radio, all the others said no, and they only jumped on board once it had charted. Once it was a top 10, then we got playlisted on the other radio stations. So without a doubt, pirate radio, DJs made Mis-Teeq the success that it was, and without a doubt.
You guys had an incredible run. Like, Why, Scandalous, One Night Stand. What's your best bars? What do you think? What was your best contribution to a tune?
My best contribution? Oh my gosh. I think Be With Me always stood out because that was a moment in itself. But I think, you know what? Probably songs that were on the album that weren't even on singles. And actually for me, it's very, when I look back at some of those bars, I find them very cringy. Like, I was like, what were you doing?
But not when you hear M to the I to the S-T-E-E-Q.
M with the I, yeah. That one was all right. That one was all right. But some of them, especially on Y, I think I did that when I was like 19 and didn't know what I was doing. I'd been to a house party my uncle was throwing, and my uncle was in the kitchen rapping about chicken, rice and gravy. I was like, teach me that rap. And he taught me this rap in his kitchen at this party. And I went to a club, I think the following week. And as a dare, my friend said, go on the mic and do that rap that your uncle taught you. I was like, yeah, come on then. Because I'm always looking for the reaction, for doing something stupid. I take the microphone. I did it as a joke, just because I was dared to do it. And then the crowd really responded. And I was like, oh, I didn't expect that. And I think it was because I was a female there in my little dress, you know, on the mic. And it took people by surprise. And then I got addicted to that reaction. And from that moment, I started doing it more. And it was actually Sabrina. She was the one that actually said, you need to do that on one of our songs. Because at that point, I hadn't been doing it on our songs. It was just something I was doing in a club on a Friday night because I thought it was funny. And then I started to enjoy it. And I remember going to clubs I don't know if MC Viper remembers this, but they'd be like, you know, like the guys, they all huddle round and they're passing the mic. They wouldn't even let me in the circle, man. I was just trying to squeeze up in there. Let me have a go on the mic. And I was always that girl that wasn't afraid to go up and just get in the circle and be like, pass me the mic, let me have a go. And that is literally how it started. And yeah, and thanks to Sabrina, because I was like, nah, we can't put that on the song. We can't.
But you was a garage MC, bro.
I know, but to me, it was like I was a raver as well. And it was something I did in a club. I didn't even think about putting that on a jam. It just didn't even cross my mind. And so it was her encouragement to do it that made me do it. And then once it became a bit of a trademark for the group and I started to enjoy it, then of course I started taking myself more seriously. But up until that point, it was just something I did on a night out, literally.
Because you know, like there are certain garage words and phrases, yeah?
Yeah.
Like inside, yeah? When I hear that, I hear it in your voice.
You know, I said to Mo Gilligan the other day, because he said to me, when you say inside, and I said to him, it's inter.
Don't lie.
I swear to God. It's inter.
No, my mind is blown. Inter. Like enter.
Yeah, but I kind of put an I on it just to
like
say
Inter Milan, just to switch it up.
Just inter. Yeah, because we were weird. We would just remix words and say and chat bare fraff.
But remember,
and then the producer would leave it in, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
But garage was it thrived on fraff.
Exactly.
It was the nonsense era.
Exactly. So when a producer says go in and ad-lib and you're like, inter, and you just come out of nonsense and then he plays you the record back and he's left it in, you're like, okay, cool. And the way like Sunship would just chop up the vocal and like create really interesting, quirky kind of hooks and catchphrases within the songs, it just worked. I'll never forget the first time our A&R came down to the studio and played us the garage version of All I Want. We went bananas. Like obviously now it's a song we all know, but back then it sounded so interesting and different. And what Sunship did was so unique. We were so excited. I remember that feeling of, wow, this is different. This feels exciting. And to come with the second single that had as much of an impact as our first single, that was the key moment. Yeah. Because if that song hadn't worked, there would have been no platinum album, there would have been no rise of Mis-Teeq, because it's all well and good coming out of the trap strong with Why, but how are you gonna maintain that success? Yeah. So we owe a lot to Sunship for that remix.
And I want Sunship.
Mis-Teeq when I want
Man, it's like legacy, bro. That is like that's memorable. In fact, you guys had greatest hits album.
Yes.
Which that's huge. I kind of admire the audacity of having that after like, what was it, 3 albums?
But do you know what it was, right? I don't know how many people know this, but we started working on a 3rd album. We were in America. Scandalous was a top 10 radio hit in America. But whilst we were out there having success with Scandalous, our record company in the UK went bust. They went into liquidation. A lot of people blamed Victoria Beckham at the time because they were an independent label. They were signing all these acts.
Why do they blame Victoria?
There was this whole thing in the media because they'd signed Victoria Beckham. They were a tiny label and they'd spent a fortune signing
they spent all the
her.
Money on you're out of your mind.
They spent a lot of money on that project. But they obviously had, they had Craig David, they had some successful acts, but they were still the underdog. And so anyway, cut a long story short, they went bust. We were in America. We'd started working on a 3rd album, but that was the point when I came back from America that I decided I wanted to leave the group. So that's why we didn't do a 3rd album. We ended up putting out a greatest hits.
So were you the catalyst that broke up the group?
Are you trying to get hate on me now?
No, I'm just... It sounds as though you walked away from Mis-Teeq.
Yeah, so the true story is that when I came back from America, I wasn't happy. I spent several weeks debating it with my close people. It wasn't a decision that I made lightly, but I came to what the moment was actually, we got offered another deal. We got offered a major deal. And I knew if I signed that deal, I'd be tied into the group for several more years. And I thought, here's a clean out. Here's a way out without me having to fight. I can just walk away. I got to the point where I wasn't happy. And it wasn't that I wanted to be a solo artist. It wasn't that I was in the group thinking, it's my time now and my time.
My time, showtime,
I'm a walking hook line.
Inside.
Yeah. But I genuinely needed time out. It was a really intense 8 years of my life and it changed my life. And had I been happy, because to me, well-being is more important, I would have stayed.
Why weren't you happy?
Because by the time we got to the end of the group, there were conflicts within the group. And, we've been on an emotional roller coaster as a group, as you can imagine. It's like being in a relationship with, it's just an intense relationship. And we've had moments where we've not connected and we've not got on. We've been very respectful of one another in the sense that after all these years, we've maintained dignity, and anything that's ever happened with Mis-Teeq, we've kept it very private and between the three of us, and we still communicate to this day. I was actually with Sue Elise only 2 months ago when I went to Australia, and I hung out with her and her baby, and it's all love. But we've had our issues, and towards the end, I wasn't happy, and life's too short. Life's too short. You get one life.
Were you fearful in that moment though?
Yes.
That's like stepping out of something that
shows you how unhappy I was, right?
I was going to say, like, something that is that successful, which has obviously by that point given you a certain lifestyle.
Yeah.
To step away from that,
it was doubly scary for me, right? We'll go there. I'll take it there. Think about it. When I split up with the girls, I also got married that same year. And my marriage lasted a year, and so I'd split up with the girls. I entered into this marriage. And then in 2006, October 2006, a lot of things happened in between, but I'll cut a long story short. I had no money. My marriage had ended. I had no record deal. And that was in October of the 2006. And I sat there and I thought, all these years for everything that I've worked for, why have I nearly lost everything? What's happening? And I don't know if you're a spiritual person or believe in these things, but I felt like at the time, there was a lot of changes going on and a lot of things shifting and moving and a lot of clearing out that had to be done in order for me to move on to the next level, next stage of my life. So I had to hit rock bottom, and that was the growth. That was the making of me.
How do you pick yourself up from there? Let's go there. How do you pick yourself up from that? Because you were Alesha Dixon, part of Mis-Teeq, and then you became a tabloid news story as well, at a time when, as you say, you had parted with the girls. So your whole foundation of who you were was rocked. And then on top of that, your personal life is in magazines and in tabloids. How do you come out the other side of that? Yeah,
it was really embarrassing at the time because we weren't Mis-Teeq, we weren't tabloid girls. We didn't crave that. It wasn't our vibe. So when that happened, I was really embarrassed for many reasons. And I, sat on the floor for a few days, depressed, not eating, crying, the usual. And then you get that little voice in your head that says, you're better than this and your life is worth more than this. You know your value. We're allowed to swear on this show.
Do it.
Get the up off the floor, fix up and get moving and keep it moving. And it's that internal voice, that inner strength that I have, that knowing that my life is worthy, that made me basically turn my whole life around and reinvent and keep it moving because I was better than that. It's almost like the thing that happened, obviously the marriage, the personal life, that's life. It happens to people all the time. But like you say, I had to deal with that publicly. But it was just the interesting part at the time was the fact that within that same month of my marriage ending, I lost by the way, because I'd signed a solo record deal with Polydor Records. And I spent a year and a half making the album and they never put that album out and they dropped me. But all of that happened within the same 2 weeks. Tell me that's major, like 2 major things all happening within 2 weeks of each other.
That is, like, a lot of people don't come back from that.
But I think, when you've lost everything, there's only one way up, right? You either stay down or you get back up stronger. That's the only option. That was the only option because I knew that these things that were happening to me were things that were going to pass through me. They weren't defining me. I was more than that. But that time in 2006, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful for it now. Like it was at the time, it was the worst thing that could have happened to me. But right now, at this point in my life, it was the best thing that happened to me. Like, I'm thankful for that moment.
So when you had that moment where you were like, get up, Alesha.
Yeah.
What was your vision for Alesha Dixon in that moment?
I still knew I wanted to carry on with music. I felt unfulfilled as a solo artist. When the group split, at that moment, I wasn't thinking about a solo record. But once I started on that journey, I knew it was something I wanted to do. It's a different form of expression. I simultaneously decided to sign up to Strictly Come Dancing, which again, everybody I know within the music industry all told me don't do it.
Is it?
I went to people that I really trust in very high up positions that all said, don't do it. Because of the perception. And I was like, do you know what? I just need some joy. I like dancing, man. I just want to dance.
Was the perception like, if you go on this,
you're going to ruin your career?
It's like a rock bottom choice.
You're going to ruin your career. But here's irony for you. So I did Strictly Come Dancing. I won the show in 2007, and the same record company that dropped me offered me an even bigger deal than the first time that they signed me. But I never went with them in the end. I went with Warner Atlantic. And that was the right decision. But it was the irony. I then had 2 record companies fighting over me after I won that show. But record company execs had told me, don't do that show. It's like, this is why you have to follow your own compass. Yeah. People are going to give you advice all the time. And that's great. And you can take it on board. But that voice in your head, I trust it so much because when I've not listened to it in the past, I've let myself down. And when I listen to it, great things happen. And even though I knew that perception-wise, it might not have been a cool look, but I'm not trying to be cool because here's the thing. The only thing that is cool in life is just being you, being authentic, being true to who you are. And I wanted to do that show for what I believe were the right reasons. Because I just wanted to have fun. I wanted to dance. My mum couldn't afford to send me to dance school. I had the opportunity to be trained by professional dancers. And to be honest, after going through a public divorce, I just needed to laugh. And I was hurting inside. I was deep down, I was in pain, but I was also experiencing so much joy. And that show, it's like a little bubble. And there was a moment when I won the show and Matthew, my partner at the time, he picked me up and he was spinning me around at the end. And I never forget it because Take That Rule the World was playing. And I threw my arms in the air and all this glitter was falling on me. And I just had this overwhelming sense of everything's going to be okay.
That's crazy. So you lost your deal. The whole situation with Harvey strictly saved your life.
That's what I feel. That's how I, when I talk about the show, yeah, it did. It did save my life. Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, it was major. And all I wanted to do when I got on the show was just have fun and feel good. Because I was quite vulnerable at the time. And personally, I was acting quite recklessly.
How so?
In that I've always been a person I've struggled in my life to have boundaries. And so I've had to learn boundaries as I've got older. And I think I've always been very strong-willed, very sensible, very focused from a young age. But I'm the kind of person, of course, like any human being, I can have moments in my life where I can just act a bit reckless. And I felt like around 2006 and 2007, I was drinking more than I should be. I was just, there just wasn't that focus that I should have had in my life and those boundaries that I needed to have. And I think I was just acting out. There was just so much that had gone on over the last couple of years. And yeah, I was just rebelling, I guess, in a way. To be honest with you, I think what really sorted me out, truthfully, was when I met Azuka, my partner that I'm with now, because when I'd had a drink and I was acting a bit reckless, that wasn't his vibe. He wasn't down for that. And actually that could have been detrimental to our relationship. And I respected him so much and loved his morals so much that in a way it kind of made me fix up.
Your route from Garage MC to Nation Sweetheart, in my mind, is the most unpredictable journey I've ever seen via NERD music video. Like, your journey has been so unpredictable. And for a black woman to be embraced by the mainstream in that way is not something that we see very often. Do you feel as though you've been embraced and welcomed by Middle England?
That's a really good question. And my first response is yes, till I do something they don't like and then they just turn on you. Like wear a necklace.
Or go in your garden in COVID.
Right. I forgot about that one.
What, you shouldn't be in a park, Alesha?
I was thinking more about
the size of my garden.
I was thinking more about wearing, a Black Lives Matter necklace because I thought that was important.
What was that like? Because yeah.
Actually, that wasn't the first time they turned on me. The tide turned on me when oh my gosh, the first experience I had of that, there were 4 black guys that came on Britain's Got Talent. And when I critiqued them, I said, 4 sexy chocolate men. I got called a racist. The fact that people turned on me was really surprising. But these things happen quite a lot in that sometimes you can never kind of kid yourself into thinking, you can't walk around thinking I'm a national treasure or the nation's sweetheart. I don't see myself like that. I think I walk a very a thin line because I understand that there's a certain demographic that like me, of course, but I'm very much in the real world in that not everyone likes you, and you will say things and do things that people just don't like, and that's their choice. So I like to stay in that realistic, point of view. So when things do happen, it's not surprising. What is surprising is the things that people tend to not like and the things that they react to. That always surprises me. When your intention is good and then that gets criticized or that gets attacked, that's tough.
What is that like then? Because when you were very vocal and visually so with your support of Black Lives Matter on TV, and you got that backlash, they were off-comming it up. Yes. What is that like when there's a realization that we like you when you do things on our terms?
Exactly. It's heartbreaking, actually. Yeah, but it was familiar territory because I don't know if you remember when I joined Strictly Come Dancing as a judge, I was attacked then. There was just all these remarks from female journalists that I thought was so irresponsible, but I felt like I was a bit of an easy target. A young Black female, I felt like, oh, I'm an easy person for you to have a pop at. But I experienced that. I had tabloid journalists outside my house for 2-3 weeks. They were writing, calling me thick, calling me every nasty name you can think of. So I felt like that taste that I had then has kind of prepared me for any moment that I get, to the point now, as heartbreaking as it is, I've also found a way to have a sense of humor about it. It's very, very difficult for something to be written about me where it breaks me now, because I'm just built to fight it off. I just know how to put that protective armor around myself. I know what's important. I zoom out. I put things into perspective. I understand it comes with the territory. It doesn't mean that it's okay, because being disrespectful and attacking people is never okay. But I've found a way that within my personal life, it doesn't have an effect on my spirit, and that I can sort of stay in that grounded space. But yeah, it's still heartbreaking that when you, as I said, with the Black Lives Matter necklace, I'm wearing that because I thought that was the right thing to do. I wanted to do that. It felt right. So for people to turn on you is so disappointing. And of course, I've always been aware that I'm the only person of colour on that show. So I do feel the weight of that, and I'm very mindful of that. But I try so hard. I really try hard to stay true to who I am.
But when Black people go on, they try and get eye contact with you. They're like, Alesha, please, Alesha.
I know.
Alesha, please. It's me and you.
I know.
And you're like, oh, what's your act?
But do you know how...
It's comedy and swords. Alesha, but I'm Black.
But do you know what's hard as well? I'll say yes to someone and it's you can't win, because then people are tweeting you saying, oh, you only picked that person because they're Black. But I wouldn't patronise someone by just picking them because they're Black. Of course, when a Black person comes out and they are the minority, I'm always happy to see a Black person. Why wouldn't I be? I'm always happy to see a Black person come out. Of course. But I'm never going to just pick you because you're Black. I'm going to pick you.
I'm going to give you the golden buzzer.
Because I like you. Someone's like, oh, she only ever gives Black people the golden buzzer. Well, if you actually did your research and looked, I've given my golden buzzer to many white people too.
You're armed with so much wisdom, which comes with experience, and you're a mother to 2 young Black girls, 2 and 7, 8?
7 and 2.
What do you teach them?
Boy.
What are the lessons that you teach those young Black girls?
Self-love is the most important thing, and self-worth. And particularly my 7-year-old, the conversations that we have with her, the way we try to get her to think. We try to get her to think outside the box always, because we don't want her in a box. We want her to be filled with possibility and hope, and to believe that she can do whatever she wants. So those conversations, in the best way you can with a 7-year-old and getting their attention, they happen on a daily basis in our house, because we want her to think big. We want her to fly in whatever shape or form she wants to fly. We're the kind of parents, If she sits there playing a computer game, we're the parents that are going, you know, you could be the one that makes this game, right? You know, you're the one that could create it. She says to me things like, Mummy, I want to go in and talk to them at Nintendo.
Love that. Come on.
We are very much creative people in our household. My partner's very creative as well and thinks very much outside the box. I love the way his mind works. And I think my daughter's so lucky that she has that and she has him, because I just think, oh my gosh, I wish I had that growing up, you know? And she's got the boundaries with it. She's got the, you know, that security. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. I don't know if you know that about me, but, you know, stepbrothers, sisters here, there, mum and dad split up when I was young. Lots of a very turbulent, lovely, but turbulent childhood. Whereas my daughters, I love that it's mum and dad. We're a unit. It's togetherness. It's security. My daughter, when I was my daughter's age, I was worried about whether my mum was if I was gonna come home and my mum was gonna have a black eye. When my daughter comes home, the joy, that, like, for me, the power in that freedom, that mental freedom, because when I was a kid, I didn't have mental freedom. I had a lot of concerns and worries. And so watching her, I feel like I've done a good job in that my daughter's just so joyful.
I love everything that you guys represent and how visible you are as a black family.
It's important
as well. It's incredible to see.
So important.
When you ask people, like, what comes to mind when I say Alesha Dixon, I feel like everybody has a different response.
Yeah, probably.
whether it's Mis-Teeq, Strictly, Boy Does Nothing. Like everybody seems to have a different entry point.
Yeah.
To discovering Alesha Dixon. What do you want people to think of when they think of you?
Oh God, that's really deep. I guess the things that matter: being a compassionate person, being a person that's empathetic to people, and a team player, a fearless person. Because I was afraid of everything growing up. Everything petrified me. Picking up the phone and making an inquiry used to scare me. So the woman that you talk about now is somebody that I've had to reinvent. I've had to become that person because I wasn't. I was so insecure as a kid.
Really?
Yeah, but that's because I didn't have that security at home. I didn't feel secure. It created so much insecurity in me. Never felt good enough. But I always had a vision, an ambition, and a desire to create the life that I wanted to create for myself. So I guess I want people to see me as a fearless person, that when I decide to do something, I'll do it. And I do it with joy. I like to do, I'm a people's person, and I care deeply about a lot of people and a lot of things. I'm still, even at 42, learning how to be more transparent and open. Having conversations about things that matter, I still find very tricky to do. But I'm a work in progress. I'm not there yet.
When did you feel good enough then? If you grew up with that insecurity, feeling as though you were never good enough, when was the point when you realised? Was it Mis-Teeq? Was it after that? Were you still insecure in Mis-Teeq?
I think and a lot of people suffer with that imposter syndrome. Where you're going through the motions of something and you're doing something and you're turning up. But deep down in your soul, you're still questioning your greatness, your worthiness, your value. You're constantly questioning that, constantly doubting yourself. What I realize is there is no greater version of anyone than yourself. It's not about comparing yourself to somebody else's journey and somebody else's path, because there will always be somebody out there making more money, doing more things than you, being more superficially successful. But I realized, especially because I've had to do a lot of work on the inside, that's the true success. That's when I connected the dots. I realized that to be a success is more about who I am than what I do. And therefore, when I realized that, and that self-love and that value, then you can bring that to any table that you're at, because you understand you have a place there and you are valid enough to be at that table and worthy to be at that table. So I guess trial and error. Confidence comes through doing something constantly and seeing results, of course, but also confidence in when something's not going well. That's the key, because that's when you're tested the most. I feel like I've had enough moments in my life that have tested me, when I have lost money, or I have been out of a job, or I have had heartbreak, or I have had childhood trauma, whatever those moments are, because I recognize the pattern, and the consistent pattern is that something great comes from it when you do the work, I think you start making that connection. And once you've tapped into that and you tune into that, life becomes more manageable. You can look at a challenge as something that you can work through rather than something that's going to overtake you. And so I think that's it. It's just through the experience of doing something that you come to the conclusion. I don't know if it's necessarily that one thing is the answer. It's a combination of lots of different things that amount to that.
Oh, you're just giving us gems.